Hey everyone, how are you doing all? Hope you are doing good. So you're welcome in to another very important topic, which is like why we use AutoMapper. You might have heard this many times, AutoMapper, AutoMapper. Is this something new in C# language? Well, not. It's a tool. It's a third-party tool we use in C# language to automate something. As the name suggests, auto, that means to automate something, and mapper means we would like to map. So what we really map? We map two similar classes. Well, let me explain this to you, that why we really need to map. Let's say we have a domain class. Hope you understand what domain classes are. Domain classes are simple classes which are useful in getting in and out data from the database. Okay, so they essentially connect to your databases. Yes. So domain classes are something that help you to get and fetch data from databases. So typically we call them domain classes. The classes that fetch data. So you typically like we also call them models sometimes, right? You know, the naming convention is very overlapping. Sometimes we call them like models as well. So you can call them application models or data models or domain classes. So all right, so you know them. Like let's say you got let's say a student class. Okay, the student will be having couple of like couple of methods. So let me get to it, like what methods you'll be having in here. So I already have prepared an example, so let me first exemplify this. Let's say this is a student class and this class is a domain class. When I say domain class, that means this class is connected to database. Probably it will get you data, it will fetch you data, right? So that is how it is. Now, quite honestly, in your UI, you might not exactly use the class like this. What I mean to say is that your UI might show ID for sure, might show you date of birth, or let's say instead of showing date of birth on your UI, you'd like to show the age instead of showing the date of birth. You would like to show the class in which the student is currently in, address is fine, and also you don't want to be showing the first name and last name, you want to be showing them together as a full name. So that is in the UI. Might want to show ID, might want to show full name. Just I'm trying to tell you that what drives us to use mapping and further auto mapping, right? You slowly understand the point. So in the UI, we don't want to be using these properties as is. We want to be using the ID for sure. The first name and last name together will be clumped together, and we want to get full name. We don't want to show date of birth for some reason. We just want to show the age of the student and the class in which he is studying, and definitely the address, right? This is what we all want on the UI. So the mood of the UI is a little different. So who do you think serves the UI? It's another class, right? So you know that the class that serves UI are known as what? Can you tell me? Tell me. View model, right? View model. So UI is oftentimes known as view, and the model that supports the view is known as view model. Now they have all different kinds of names. You can call them DTOs, view models. That depends on, I mean, when and what you want, right? So if you really would like to know the differences in these like jargons, I will describe it in some other class. But for now, you understand that we have another class which serves the UI. So the UI will definitely not be connecting directly with this particular object, will be connecting with an object which somehow derives from this object. Now when I say derive, I don't mean the physical inheritance. All I mean is that there should be another class that should have similar properties to them. Maybe many properties are same, that is ID will still remain ID, the class will still remain class, address will still remain address. And there are also 6 to 7 fields which is just the same. Just note this word. There are 6 to 7 more fields which might be same. So this field will be same, will be used same. This field will be the same, and this field, I'm sorry, not this field. This field, the class field will be the same, and the address field will be the same, right? However, the first name and last name will be joining together to have something new known as full name. The date of birth will modify itself to give rise to something new, which is known as age, right? So for that, we need a new class. So that class is a view model, or we can call a DTO object, data transfer object. So here is this class, which I already have it here. That's the DTO class. Okay. Now this is the DTO class. I already have the code with me so that I don't have to type it from scratches. Otherwise, it takes a lot of time. So just for the sake of time, I am getting the code from my own code, and then I'll be explaining you all through. So let me take it all here instead of explaining in Notepad. Why not I take it in Notepad++? Yeah, it's good to explain here. Set the language to C#. That makes it colorful. All good. And let me close my Notepad. Not really required. Okay. So the domain classes, they connect with your databases. Somehow you got this domain class. You have data. You understand now. For this sake of this video, I completely like I assume that you know what a database is, how data is collected, what is entity framework. I assume that you might have done these things previously, but let me tell you, AutoMapper and these things strictly don't connect with databases. Is auto mapping is a facility by which you can connect one object to another object. It's a very simple way of transferring data from one object to another object. Okay, that's all is about AutoMapper. It connects objects between two different classes, but they are not totally different. They have some similarity. All right, so a mapping has to take place. So that means if we get an object of student class, we have somehow to be mapping it to the object of StudentDTO object. Why? Because our UI will most likely bind to this and not bind to this. So just to help facilitate the UI, we created another class. It may not always be UI. It can also be transferring data to another service which don't require the original object, might require a little variation of the original object. So whenever you feel that there are two classes, like mathematically you can think like class A and class A dash. Okay, now A and A dash are a little different. There's some little differences, but there are many fields which are same too, right? So whenever you have to map A to A dash, either we can use some kind of manual mapping, which we need to write all through the full code, or we can use the help of, we can take the help of AutoMapper like library, okay, which is a nugget which we can download from the Nugget package manager. So first of all, I'd like to show you that how the manual mapping works. If I come to this example, you see that I got two classes, one the domain class and the DTO class. In this example, I have not connected to any database. What I'm all telling you is that domain classes mostly connect with database, but for auto mapping, we never require that one of the class should definitely connect with the database. All right. So this is the console application. However, we can really do the same thing with any kind of application. I have developed a PDF for that as well. I'll show you that too. So we have first class, we have the second class, and now I have created a class known as manual mapper class. Now in this manual mapping system, what I've all done is I have a static method convert, which takes in a student object, converts it into a DTO object and returns it. Super simple. Taking a student object, that is taking an object of this kind, and then converting each and every field. Just look at it. We have got student.id. I'm converting this to the ID of the StudentDTO. We got the first name and last name. We are concatenating them together and creating the full name. Right? So out of the first name and last name, the full name is born. Now, out of the student date of birth, the age is born. So, age is a function of date of birth, right? So, if I know your date of birth, I can immediately know what your age is. So, it is just like the current time subtracted from the date of birth will give the age, right? And for that, we have a little function doing that. You can spend some time looking at this code, that what it does and how it does. It's very simple, that you subtract the year from the current year, that is current year from your date of birth, and doing some little manipulation to make sure that your age is not big. The age should be corrected. So this is a line of correction. If you look at it, you'll understand yourself. I'm not spending time that what is the logic behind it. However, if you look at it, it is simple enough. So what this function does, this function is taking a date of birth and returning an integer, which is the what? Which is your age, right? Which is your age. And what this function is doing, this function is taking in a student object and will create a DTO object. We are creating an object in Fly, so we are writing return and then immediately writing new keywords after that. So we are basically creating an object in Fly, right? We could have created it separately and then returned the object, but that's fine. I assume your maturity when you are watching this video. I assume that you have got the basics of object-oriented programming very clear. By the way, for those who don't know me, I am an one-to-one trainer. Most of the time I do that online, one-on-one classes on .NET, on C#, on Blazor, on APIs. So if you want to be getting some help, you can definitely give me a tinkle. Details of my phone number and other details, website details are given in the description below. So let me continue. And so this is the DTO object, which is born out of the initial domain object, right? We can call it anything. We don't have to call it domain. It can just be some object A, some object B, some object A getting converted to some object B. You might be thinking, why not this be converted to this? Yes, of course it is possible. I mean, there can be a possibility, not 100%, but there can be a possibility. For example, knowing somebody's age is not possible to guess the date of birth. For example, if you are currently 25, if you tell that I'm 25 now, so I will not be able to guess your exact date of birth, right? So it's not possible. But if I know your date of birth, I can tell you how old you are in age, at least the integer part of it. So that's the point. So it's possible to do a reverse mapping, but before I come to the auto mapping system, I think that I have made this very clear that how a manual mapping class, so this is all I have written manually, and that can work. So before I come into this auto mapper, let me show you that how this manual mapping really worked. So just look at this code. I just don't want to confuse you. Only look up to this much. All right. So we have a data laden object. Now here we have created a raw data, that we have the ID, the first name John, the second name Doe, the date of birth is 2005 6/10, right? We have created a date time object starting with the year first, and month, and then the day, right? So that's how the date time constructor is. We can go even further, the hour, minute, second, milliseconds, and all, right? So that's fine. So this is when John was born, and he's in 10th grade, and the address is 123 Main Street. All right, great. So now the point is that we want to be creating a DTO object. The DTO object has to be created out of the original student object. For that, a mapping is needed. So we are doing a mapping over here. We are giving this student object and letting this manual mapper handle it. So there is the manual mapper here. I think I missed one point, that is mapping the address as well. So let me write it, address, address, address equals to student dot address. There we go. So that means we want to be mapping every single thing of the source to the target. Here student is the source, whereas the target is the DTO object, right? So source is being mapped into the target. Now think about a situation in which we have got a lot of common properties, a lot of them, 10, 12, maybe 15 or 20 of them. Then you need to be doing these kinds of stuff many times, right? Just look at it. You have to be doing many of those kinds of mapping manually. The only thing that requires to be mapped explicitly are these two things, right? I think you got me. So that means the only thing that needs explicit mapping are these two fields. You need to know that the student DTO has no idea of how to do the full name and how to do the age. So full name is born out of the source's first name concatenated with the last name with a space, and the age is born out of the source's date of birth, right? We are using a function call there to convert it. So they are the only two things which require explicit intervention. However, look at this ID, the class, the address, they are the same. ID, go to ID. Class, go to class. Address, go to address. In this way, we can have a lot of things, right? Parent name, go to parent name. Okay, the school's name, go to school's name. So if we have to be doing all of these things, with time our code will be bloated with a lot of inefficient stuff. I mean, we need to be updating every time our manual mapper anytime we have changes in both of the domain and the student DTO, right? So we have to be doing those changes manually. So manual is all manual, right? So what is the way around? What is the way around? I hope that you understood up to this much. We got a domain class. We use our manual mapper class, use the static call. You know, we are not creating an object of manual mapper because the static functions can be called directly on a class, because we created convert as a static function on the manual mapper class. So we called it, we passed the student, we got the student DTO and printed the student DTO. We got a print method somewhere. So we got a print method. This is the print method, right? That prints the DTO. So okay, I just missed one thing. This address also need to be printed. DTO address. All right, so that's how the thing goes. That's how the thing goes. I mean, just don't look at it right now. I'm just coming there, of course. Just don't look, right? Just block it. Please block it. Okay. So maybe block it. Don't have a look, right? Just look. That is how the manual mapping system would be working, and that is fine. That is fine all until you don't have a lot of fields. Okay, so you can do some kinds of, like, maybe 2 to 3 fields are fine, but if it is more than 5, 6 or 7, it is difficult and it is very cumbersome and very boring to just say that okay, the property X of the DTO will map with property X of my source, and property Y of my DTO will map with property Y of my source, right? So when the properties are same, the properties names are same, why should I means ever be doing this manually? Is there any help out there in the internet? Hey, can somebody help me out? Yes, AutoMapper says yes sir, I can help you. So there comes the AutoMapper, and let me put this code back here now. Think about the same thing, just look at the way we have done. Let's say that what we have to do in auto mapping system, just now don't look at this code. Now for doing mapper, we need to be having the auto mapping library. An auto mapping library can be obtained just by including auto mapper in your project. Okay, and you got just some code here. Okay, just ignore that. Okay, just ignore this. I mean, this will be used for using AutoMapper in a web application, right? But for console application, let's concentrate on console application first. All you need to do is that we need to be including the auto mapping system. We need to be including the auto mapping code. So how do you do that auto mapping code? I already have my code. I was developing a Blazor application. So let me show you that how you include auto mapping system. Um, hmm, all right, so yes, this is how This is what you need to include in your CS Proj file, or you can search for AutoMapper in your project, and then this will automatically be referenced here. Let me show you what I all mean. Let me create a new project. Okay, I'm just getting a new console application project, console application.NET Core. Click next. I'll just call it AutoMapper. Sorry, how did I write matter? Mapper example. All right, AutoMapper example. Cool. .NET 9. Click create. The very first thing I'll do is, if I'm doing in console, the very first thing we'll do is get my library in. Take some time. All right, so the very first thing is I can right click on this guy, click add new nugget manager, right click on dependencies actually, and add project reference. Oh, I'm wrong, sorry. Right click on this what am I doing? Come on. Right click and add new NuGet package reference. That will get you this interface. Okay, and then search for AutoMapper. AutoMapper. To get your AutoMapper, searching. Great, you got it here. AutoMapper. This is the sign up AutoMapper. Now you can click on this AutoMapper, and the latest table is 14.0.0. All right, and click install. AutoMapper is being installed. Got installed. The proof of what you'll get if I double click on this guy, and you'll see that AutoMapper 14.0 is the current version as of this recording. Okay, so my project is a little bit old, so I should update it. Okay, it is the 13.0. Okay, now one more version ahead, 14.0. Okay, so AutoMapper has been included. This fact that it has been included can also be verified by going to these dependencies, going to packages, and you'll see AutoMapper has been installed. If you are referring to any kind of your project dependencies, they will be referred in your project dependencies there, right? We don't have any project dependencies here. Okay, so that was it. Now let me close this. Okay, now bring in my whole code that I have it here. Yeah, this whole code. Excuse me. Okay, so let me get my whole code, and let me plug this in Visual Studio. Okay, I'm almost going to delete everything and plug this in here. All right, so we have a domain class student. We got a StudentDTO. We got this manual mapper, and which does the manual mapping stuff. And don't look at it right now. I'm just going to soon explain you. And also don't look at it now. Just going to commenting it for now. All right. So also this need to be commented. Okay. All right. So that was it. Basically, you can see. Okay. One more thing. Let me have a console.read key. Stop it from moving away. Also good. So here is my John Doe. Here is his date of birth. Here is his class, the address, and then using manual mapping, we want to convert this student to DTO, and we'd like to print the DTO and see how this object got converted. All right. So here we are just printing the DTO. However, in a view or something like that, in view files and all, we use this DTO to show to actually bind. We actually bind this DTO to the view. And for Blazor application, we bind this DTO to the Blazor component. The concept is just the same, no difference. Okay, so you need to be getting this DTO, then bind it with anything, any kind of UI. I did tell you that is the concept of view models. Let me run it and see that how this object has been converted to the DTO. All right. Excuse me. So you can clearly see that we have got this ID, John Doe, 19, 10th grade. See how nice, isn't it? John Doe has been clubbed together and we get John Doe. The age is now 19. Based on his date of birth, we got the age. And this data and this data and this data are all the same, right? So our manual mapping really rocked. Now we will now switch to the auto mapping system. So let me now comment this. Okay, commenting this, and I'm uncommenting this. Yeah. So now auto mapping in play now. So for the auto mapping to be done, we need to be teaching how exactly, just like we taught here, just like we taught the manual mapping, that how to convert first name last name to full name, how to convert date of birth into age. The AutoMapper also need to be taught. So in this regard, both are same. We need to teach it. But the only good thing about AutoMapper is we only need to teach those mappings which are absolutely essential. I mean, which are needed. Other mappings are automatically inferred. Do you understand that ID has to be getting into an ID, class has to be getting into a class. That means as if you will not write all of them, right? So it makes our life much easier, right? So now how to do that? This is used by some lambdas and all. That makes the thing little complex, but maybe things are like that. So you need to create a mapping profile. Okay, and here a mapping profile constructor is used. Now we have this mapping profile. We want to map. See, for that we need to be calling create map and write my source and my destination. The first type is the source type, and the second type is the destination type, right? So source type is getting mapped with the destination type. And how is it mapping? See, we are providing the mapping for only two members. One for the full name, that is how exactly the full name will get its information from this first name and last name, and how the destination, that is this guy, destination is the second guy's age will be from, which is from the date of birth. So we have got some couple of lambda expressions here. So again, I really want your understanding in lambdas here, because .NET Core is sprinkled with lambdas everywhere, right? So you need to understand them really very well. And yep, so create map, it's a generic class, it's a generic function basically, okay? And we are passing the student as the source, and this is the target. All right, or the destination. Okay, you can call it a target or destination, whatever. This is the source and this is the destination. And we are writing that how exactly you are mapping the destination's properties. You need to be telling them explicitly. If you don't tell, then the AutoMapper will not know how exactly to create full name out of what fields, right? And other fields you don't have to say at all, right? You don't have to tell at all that, okay, you need to be so that is, you don't have to be tell this anyway, right? Just want to tell you. And one interesting thing, do you see there's a chaining concept here too, that you are chaining function calls. So this is a good example of chaining as well. So for member, again chaining, and let's say we are writing ID and you are saying from ID. I don't have to say all of them, right? I never have to say that this src source SI. I don't have to do them because it is understood with the auto mapping system. If the property names are same, it automatically does the mapping. So here basically the create map is called, and yes, this is important for you to call create map at least. This is very, very important. Let's say for any reason both the source and destinations have same number of properties, a little different, then also you need to write this create map function. Okay, isn't clear to you? Okay, once again, let's say for some reason you have not provided any one of them. Okay, you don't want to say how these mappings will go. In this case, the first name last name will not know how to, I mean, in this case it will not know how full name will get its information from first name last name. So essentially the full name will remain null, the age will remain 0 because age never knows how it can calculate based on the date of birth or what other fields. But you definitely need to call at least this. If you don't call this, the auto mapping system will not work because it will not even know that which type binds with what type. So you at least need to mention this. Please understand, right? And if you also need a reverse mapping, there's a facility of reverse mapping too. All you can do is that just in the end of the code, you can write dot reverse map. Now, the very moment you do the reverse map, the source becomes destination and destination becomes source. So essentially, we are saying that if we get a DTO, how can we convert it back to a student, right? So this is also possible that if we have got a DTO, student DTO with first name with a full name, and we want to be constructing back our original domain class. I know some of the fields will fail, like date of birth cannot be constructed out of age, right? Because as I've told you, it's not possible to get somebody's date of birth out of somebody's age. But of course, we can somehow get the full first name and last name. Because if I know somebody's full name, I know that the first part of the name definitely is the first name, and anything after that will be the last name, right? If you don't have middle name, of course. So I hope that you got the point that we can do reverse map. I do have an explicit example for that as well. So this, you can pause the screen, you can see how I have done the reverse mapping stuff. Okay, that is for member, age and date of birth. Now once after reverse map, the source becomes destination and destination becomes source, as I've told you. So here I'm telling how the first name will be getting initialized from the full name, and I have written explicit functions for them, that get first name, get last name, using the split functions and all. You can have a look how have I done this. Okay, split functions. Okay, so all right, so hopefully you are getting the point that this mapping will map your source to destination and also vice versa, right? If you don't need a model class to bind back to domain, then you never need this reverse map, right? But of course, the domain classes always need to be converted to DTO classes to help facilitate UI to bind to their corresponding DTOs or the view models, right? So that's it. So let me now I'll run this example now basically. So you have understood probably. If you don't, that means you have got some problem in object oriented concepts, right? You need to be sharpening up your object oriented concepts, and if you want to do it with me, you can definitely give me a tinkle. I promise you to give you completely customized one-to-one class so that you understand the basics really very clear. So now coming to this topic, we have already created this mapping profile, which is this mapping profile class, which inherits from the profile class. This is nothing but, this profile class is nothing but a class within the AutoMapper namespace, right? So profile is something which is there in the AutoMapper namespace. I don't know why Visual Studio is not showing the IntelliSense here now. Okay, so, and you also have noted that we have used the AutoMapper namespace in the top. So all that we are left to do is we are left to just get the configuration, create a configuration object using new mapper configuration, and we need to pass a lambda expression here again and say that this mapping profile will help me to get my configuration, right? So this is my mapping profile. You can have multiple mapping profiles as well, right? You can have multiple mapping profiles. One mapping between student and StudentDTO, another mapping between something and something. However, this is completely possible to map all possibilities, all kinds of possibilities in just one mapping profile. This is what is highly doable. We do them all the time. So that would mean that not only we do the mapping between student and DTO, we can do other mappings here too. We can again write create map, and maybe we can create map, and we can map between, let's say teacher and teacher DTO. Okay, we just have student and student DTO, we can have teacher and teacher DTO, we can continue with these kind of things, right? We can just create one mapping profile class inheriting from the profile based class, and we can just do mappings for all kinds of classes, all kinds of binary classes, right? Those who need to map between themselves. So once after that, what we do is we we get the configuration using the mapper configuration, create the config. From the config, we create the mapper, and this mapper guy will get you this mapper object. Okay, now this is an mapper object. I don't know why Visual Studio is not sensing, so why not it's not sensing, very bad. Let me close this and reopen this, probably that will help fix. Sometimes Visual Studio gets really sluggish and lazy. Let me see, now it's not even now, it's not even sensing. So I'll rather close the Visual Studio and reopen my Visual Studio. Okay, and reopen my Visual Studio with this AutoMapper example. I hope this time Visual Studio should sense. Even not now. Okay, I don't know why, honestly. Not even sensing now. I'm hitting dot, something happened. Oh gosh. Okay, mapper, I can confirm you. Oh, that's fine. I was just about to tell you that I can confirm you that this is IMapper, an object of IMapper interface. Okay, I mean, when I say an object of IMapper interface, I don't mean that interfaces can be, an object can be created out of interface. All I mean is that an object that has implemented IMapper. All right, so we just work with interfaces, references. We don't work with objects in all modern applications. We follow these design patterns very strictly. If you're not aware of them, you need to know them, honestly. So this create mapper will be returning you an IMapper interface reference. That means an object that has really implemented that. And once I get this mapper, it is very easy to say that this is what I want to get my object to. This is the destination, basically, DTO, and pass in the source. However, you can do it in another way. I mean, this can be done in two ways. I don't like, honestly, this way, I just would like to say that just have the source and the destination. So this is my source object, and the destination object is the AutoDTO. AutoDTO, right? So I need to be, but in this case, I need to be creating an object of AutoDTO first. Yeah. So we need to be creating an object. Look at this. We created a blank object of AutoDTO. Okay, and then said that, okay, this is my source object. Please transfer everything into this AutoDTO. Right? Let's see how it works. Build has started. That has worked absolutely, right? While this is great, but only thing about this is that we need to create a blank object and then pass it to this. What if this blank object is non-creatable using a new keyword, right? This is quite possibility that we can have an object stopped being newed up. We don't want this object to be newed up. So what will be the case in that scenario? So it's better a better thought, though I personally like it, but it's better to have it like this. So in this way, we are saying the mapper system that Mr. Mapper, you go ahead, take this object, internally create an object of this type and return it to me, right? So I'm not going to be passing a blank new object and passing this object where you are transferring your data to. So this mapper.map, this generic variant will do this magic automatically. It will take an object, take the source object, will convert to destination, and this is the destination, and it will get it to AutoDTO object. Okay, so let me show you. This absolutely works. This works, right? So hopefully you got a good idea. And the last thing is, how about doing the opposite one? I've already shown you this, so you can pause the screen, take the code, right? So you can all have it right here. I'm sorry, yeah. So you can just have a look how I have done the mapping profile, reverse the mapping system. So what I have done is that yeah, here I'm saying the destination. Here in this case is the domain object itself is getting its information from the full name, so I'm extracting the first name out of full name and last name out of full name. And also I did some kind of stuff, but for this example what we are doing is that I am just ignoring the date of birth, the fact that we cannot derive date of birth from age, right? But in one of my students' computer, what I have done honestly is, if you really know somebody's age, precise age, the fractional age, okay, it's possible definitely to go back time and know exactly your date of birth, right? Which is possible. Just think about it. If you know that you are exactly 29.875628 years, right? So that means you know your exact years. That means you know your exact days. That means you can get back so many days in the past and you can exactly reach to your birthday, right? So it is possible. Of course, why not? It's not exactly that it is never possible, but for that you need to know the precise age and not the integer age. So for example, it is not possible because the age we have got in integer and not in double. So hopefully you got the whole idea. So here is the whole code. You can pause the screen. You can really have a look, right? So what I've done next is that we have created the reverse mapping now. So we have got the DTO getting back into the student, and the first name getting into the first name, last name to the last name, date of birth ignored. I think we can do this in no time. Why not? So let me actually copy this whole thing. I can just prove this fact and get it to my code. Okay, so I'm changing my system, which was the basic one now. So I'm creating this new profile. For that I need to be having this first name and last name. Real quick, I'll copy and paste. So first name and last name. Okay, by the way, have you seen these little carrots, little small monsters? If you don't know what it is, this means that get the information from the last. One means the first part from the last array element. Okay, so if somebody's name is, like my name is StudentDTO Kumar Mukherjee, so parts 1 will get Mukherjee. So this is like getting the information from the end, right? You can query this, you can Google this, you'll get it, right? This is a good things. If time permits, I will be explaining this kind of new syntaxes that are now available in C# 8 and more. Okay, this has started from C# 8 basically. So if I just write 1, that means the second index, but if I write caret 1, that means get the first element from the last. So this is like caret symbol. Okay, so you can investigate that yourself. Okay, let me copy these two things and paste it to my code. All right, pasted. Stop bleeding. All right, so we already have our program class doing absolutely fine with this DTO guy, and now the reverse one. So okay, let me come to this DTO stuff now. Add a PDF which I have opened. I'll ultimately share that PDF that to you too. So let me come with this code now, mapping this DTO back. Okay, so let me copy this and reverse mapping. Excellent. So this DTO, now of course I'm going to be writing auto DTO because this is what I have. So auto DTO, right? Auto DTO map back the student object. So I have got the first name, last name, this guy. So I also like to have my address too. The initial example never had the address. Map back address, right? So you will see first name, last name, class, date of birth, but the date of birth you will not get the right one, and you will see that default value of date of birth, which is like 000001. All right, so let me show you that how after mapping the map back object looks like. Let me give it some heading: AutoMapper reverse mapping. Okay, so yeah, mapped, and the reverse mapped, everything is fine. So from John Doe you get John and Doe separated out. 10th grade is good, all the same, address is all the good, all the same, but ignored in reverse map because the date of birth could not be inferred out of your age, right? So that fact has been shown right here, that you cannot really infer the date of birth, and you can ignore this, right? But let me tell you one thing. This is like explicitly saying that you are ignoring date of birth, but what if I don't write it? In that case too, automatically it is ignored. If you don't write something, if the system doesn't know how to infer that, it will anyway ignore that, right? You don't have to write it explicitly. But writing it explicitly gives you an understanding that our system could not evaluate the date of birth because the age, we can't do the date of birth out of the age. So instead of writing op.map from, we just write what, is op.ignore, right? Hopefully I can write even enter here to have the same way. So form member date of birth, and opt goes to op.map from. We all the time we have used map from, but here we have just written ignore because we don't have a way to infer date of birth out of the age. So that was all with auto mapping system in console application. So you saw one important thing is we just somehow need this IMapper reference, right? We need this IMapper reference, this IMapper, right? And we have done this configuration, mapper configuration stuff. Now all these things are not required if you are using it in .NET Core web application. So I have got a PDF for you already created and like to show that to you as well. So what are the steps? Let me increase the font. Okay, great. So the steps are, first of all, you need to be installing AutoMapper, and if you already don't have, you should be installing dependency injection. Okay. And second, you know that in your mapping profile, you need to be creating the mapping profile class somewhere in your .NET Core application. Okay, just like the way we did it here, the mapping profile, all the kinds of things that you want to do, reverse mapping, anything of that nature you have to do, and then you have to be registering your AutoMapper. Now, for those who are using the old .NET Core, have to be using this code in their startup CS. However, we are all now modern .NET. Modern .NET started from .NET 6 and ahead. So in .NET 6 and ahead, we just need to write builder.services.add AutoMapper, and you have to write type of mapping profile. This is all I have shown you in my project too. So in my project, if you come to this program.cs, okay, you see add AutoMapper, type of AutoMapper profile, right? AutoMapper profile. My AutoMapper profile is this. This is a Blazor application. So I have been mapping. Only thing that need to be mapped is the confirm email in the domain, right? The confirm email in the domain class. Sorry, in the view class, right? In the view, in the Razor component. So that's the only thing need to be mapped. and I've also done a reverse mapping too. All right, so this is what you need to do in your auto mapper, program.cs. You need to be doing this. The first thing, as you know, you need to be installing the AutoMapper packages that you have done, the same common thing. You need to be creating a mapping profile, the same common thing. Just that you need to be registering the AutoMapper in program.cs, okay? And third is you use this in controller. Either you use in controller or in a Blazor application, we can inject it, okay? The same concept. So in controller, we just need to inject it like this, okay? In a constructor, just like that constructor. We need to have constructor injected. And then in our view functions, in our in our actions, we can just have our object like this. Here we just have a hard-coded object. We can get it from any source, from maybe from some ADT framework, DB context class or something. But after that, we will use this mapper which was injected, right? And we can ask for the mapping from the student to the student DTO, right? So very simple number of steps, and the classes are all the same. However, if you're using Blazor application, the steps are 100% the same. Just in the component, don't support a constructor injected objects. In Blazor application, we always use the inject keyword, okay, to inject something. So instead of writing something like this, okay, something like this, having the read only keyword and then injecting in the constructor, this is never done in Blazor applications as of now. So we always write, we inject it in the properties. So Blazor explicitly use property injection. We inject it in the properties because Blazor components are highly property aware, right? The Blazor components have properties, and properties are set by the outer components. That's how the Blazor was architected. If you don't know, no problem. You don't have to know everything. Just know that they are there for now. Just think that in Blazor we use this kind of inject keyword to inject something in the property, and in normal applications, most of the applications like .NET Core applications, API applications, MVC controller application, we need to be injecting it as a part of the constructor. So that was a great deal of information using with AutoMapper. Hopefully you understand the basic part, how we map one object to another object. Just because we don't like the original object, we like to change it a little bit and then it is usable format, right? So that is why that deviation is needed. Now while that deviation, we need to be making sure that the properties are mapped properly. We can do that manually, of course, then no auto mapping is required, but that takes time if you have got a lot of properties. That is why auto mapping does the job very effectively and sincerely. So that was it. Hopefully you got some idea into the world of auto mapping, and this is your personal tutor, StudentDTO, signing off. Stay good, stay tuned, and in case if you need any personal help, um, you can give me a tinkle. I do take one-to-one classes, and you can definitely contact me. Take care and bye bye.